Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network for magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Hey everyone, welcome again to another show of the iNetrepreneur Network's radio show, and I'm glad that you are with us here today. We are traveling out on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and a variety of other sources to bring you just information that's action-packed, and hopefully there's going to be a little bit of fun involved with it today. But before I start with the show, I want to talk a little bit about, some housekeeping. I want to remind everyone that you can go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net. And on that schedule, we have over 1,000 meetings and events and summits and radio shows like Brian Wright, each and every week that you can find to level up your game, to learn, earn, and learn how to earn with, fabulous entrepreneurs just like you. And again, that is ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net. Look for a networking meeting, look for an academy to learn something. My friends, you'll love it. You'll meet a lot of like-minded people. And, right now we're in 12 countries and we have 25 states of members. And I'm really excited about that. And a lot of people have had some trying times through this thing called COVID. I said we went from normal to a new normal to now we're a new normal. And and some people are they're doing well. And we want to be with you and help you get to the level that some of our entrepreneurs are getting at. I also want to remind you to go to like us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. Facebook.com/iNetrepreneur Radio, or just go to the old site networktogether.net. Everyone could probably spell that and click on the little icon up there, the Facebook icon, and you can like us on Facebook. I also want to discuss YouTube. We're on YouTube. There it is, youtube.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. As I said, it's a little bit easier to say than to spell. But just take a snapshot of that. And once you got it into your phone or once you got it in your laptop or computer, it's there always and you can get back to it. And most importantly, I do want to remind everyone that we also have another book coming out. This is our first book. It's called The Art of Connection, 365 Days of Networking Quotes. And we've decided to follow up with the second in the series called The Art of Connection, 365 Days of Inspirational Quotes. We already have a few hundred authors in it. We still have some random pages and some reserved pages left. And with the coupon code that is going across the screen right now, you can get a reserved page that's normally $550 for only $250. So it's a $300 coupon code. We've created a cottage industry with this. We've had summits with this, and some of the coaches that have come from that, just within the network of authors itself, they've made six-figure, sums in coaching packages. But it's also created a lot of courage for other entrepreneurs who may have never written a book before, and now they're doing it. One step has led to another, and that's what I love about this book. It's not just a book about giving back to the world, but it's also creating courage, for those who are in the book or being published for the first time. And if you've never been published before and you want to be a first-time author, we even have random pages for $147. What a great way to come right out of the gate as a best-selling author and with a book that's going to be in the Library of Congress. So again, it's 365 days of inspirationalquotes.com, and that's where you can get some more information on that particular book. But again, I'm so happy that everyone is here today. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring on a good friend of mine. His name is Brian Wright. Hey, Brian, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing good. It's always good to see you, my friend. I have appreciated you for several years now, and I'm trying to go back into my mind and see how long have we known each other now, Brian?
Probably 3 or 4 years. Probably 4.
Yeah.
That's probably about right.
Yeah, I think that you and I have been friends since I've actually been in the industry of personal development, motivational development speakers and experts. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fun ride.
You and I have had, a lot of conversations, when it comes to experts and speakers and entrepreneurs and small businesses, and it's been kind of a bumpy ride over the last few months. We've seen some people do really well, and we've seen other people's fail miserably, and everything else in between. But I kind of wanted to have you let the audience know, how is your business going right now?
I'm having a record year. It's been great, and I think the thing I noticed a few weeks after the whole shutdown happened was that people were consuming more content than ever before. So huge advantage to those who are creating content. So if you're not creating content, you need to be, and you need to be repurposing it in as many ways as possible. This is why I publish my own magazine. This is why I publish a book series. This is why I do a radio show. This is why I coach other people through writing their books. I create content and I help other people create and co-create content because it's forever. And when you put it everywhere, people aren't going to see you necessarily everywhere. They will see you in one place. And then when they see you in a second and a third place, they realize, oh, this person is everywhere, as it should be.
And I think that that's really important, that people need to understand. When you're talking about creating content and you're talking about repurposing content, I think for those who don't do this, Brian, they really don't know what you mean.
Mhm.
Repurposing could be far different in their mind,
Mhm.
other than what you mean. And when you say repurpose, what you're saying is actually taking a certain body of content and doing what with that content? What does that repurpose look like?
Repurposing means publishing on multiple platforms. You can take a Facebook post, and if it's business related, you can make that very same post in LinkedIn or on Instagram. Or if you have written a blog article somewhere and you want it to be in a magazine, if that person doesn't mind repurposed content, you can use it there. In fact, when I ghostwrite books for people, I frequently will take a chapter from their book and repurpose it as an article in my own magazine because that's content I've already helped them create.
Hmm.
So I'm just going to use it again.
And you already know that content. And one of
Mhm.
the things I've noticed too is, when you're creating content, repurposing, and this is something that I found with a lot of the authors that I have talked to, and other people that are attempting to create content really as entrepreneurs, because I really work a lot with entrepreneurs, and they say, but I repurposing, it's like I'm just saying the same thing in LinkedIn as I did Facebook, as I did everything else. And what do you tell them about that? For me, I tell them redundancy is okay.
It is okay because you're the only person that's getting bored with their message because everyone is not seeing it in every place that you post it, most likely. Super fan who follows you everywhere will see it, but they will understand that every platform has a slightly different audience. The same people who are following you on Facebook may or may not be following you on Instagram or LinkedIn. And people who read a book that maybe I wrote that somebody else has contributed to, I'm grabbing their audience now. And so that person might decide to follow me and then see my other content in other places. So it's a way of expanding your reach. The only person who's bored with it is you.
And I think that's what's kind of incredible. And that takes a certain amount of getting past yourself, because
Mhm.
sometimes, if you
Yeah.
start becoming bored with yourself, I mean, you're actually delimiting yourself a little bit as well, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Don't be afraid to say what you're thinking uh, in the spirit of helping other people. That's
Yeah.
the important part. In the spirit of helping other people, is it helpful? Is it kind? Is it positive? Is it something that can help change someone's life? Maybe sometimes that's tough love. Maybe sometimes that's a, a rant with the purpose of having a solution. Just ranting
Yeah.
is complaining. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about complaining because whatever you are posting on social media becomes your personal brand, whether you like it or not. I heard Dan Fleshman say this on a mastermind call today. Whatever you post on social media is your personal brand, and your brand is what other people think you are,
Yeah.
whether you
You
intend for it to be or not. So that's why you have to be really judicious about what you say.
and for quite some time, I always kept hearing that word, be a disruptor, and it's so funny when it comes to words. And you might agree with me on this. I said, there's a big difference between being a disruptor and an interrupter. And
Mhm.
it's knowing the difference, because I've heard a lot of people who think they're disrupting, and really what they're doing is interrupting, because their disruption isn't meaningful at all. And what
Right.
would you say to that?
No, you're right. You're right. People who are disrupting their industries are advancing it to another level in a way that serves more people. if you're just interrupting, it's like if you and I were talking and having a conversation, and every time I thought of something, I would just jump in regardless of whether you were done or not. That's just rude
Right.
and not helpful.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing that I'm finding in my industry is, you and I both have seen the language change over the years. The
Mhm.
definitions have kind of moved a little bit. Like, the word authentic. I mean, it's a word that I hear a lot, and I'm like, I think it's become so diluted. Authentic almost doesn't mean anything anymore, doesn't
Right.
it?
You're right. You're right. People grab onto buzzwords and they start talking about how authentic they think they are. It's like, okay, if you have to tell me how authentic you think you are, you probably really aren't. Something like that should be self-evident.
And it really is, and I think the audience will say it really well. I mean, one of the things that you and I have talked about before is people will come to us, both you and I, and they're like, how do I get paid from stage? How can I make a living off of that? And quite frankly, in my mind, I think, really very few people get paid well from stage. It is a
Mhm.
very, very small audience.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are better suited to actually sell from stage,
Yeah.
pay a small entrance fee and, make money off the sales. But,
Yeah.
when people go up there, they ask me, you know, how can I be that next great person? And I tell them, I think that becoming the next great speaker is just give something to other people that they want to hear. That's where
Mhm.
you get your greatness, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, because when you impact people and help change people's lives, I mean, sometimes I'll post something and somebody will say, I needed this today. I had no idea. And it wasn't like I was going out of my way to try to make an impact. I'm just sharing something from my heart. I'm sharing something that has helped me. And if it's helped me, the chances are pretty good that it might help someone else. But I'm not necessarily out there with a mission to change the world per se, because I don't know what that looks like. I can
Mhm.
only meet people where they actually are. And if I'm sharing from my authentic experience, I know that if I'm going through something, then other people must be too. It's very much like when I was in school, I learned to not be afraid to ask questions in class, because I knew that I couldn't be the only dumb person in the room with this question, right? Most of the time I wasn't. Most of the time other people are like, I'm glad you asked that because I had that question too. I was just too scared to raise my hand.
Yeah, and I think that there is a certain power to asking.
Yeah.
Um, it they say it doesn't hurt to ask, but if it doesn't hurt to ask, why are people so fearful of asking? I I don't.
They're afraid of what people will think of them for having the
Yeah.
question. And what they're doing is they're judging someone for not being as far along on their journey as you are on yours, or at least as far as you think you are on yours. The people who are super successful will reach down and help you. They won't
Hmm.
judge. They're anxious to help you. In fact, I had a talk with somebody today, not today, 2 days ago, and he's someone who's really successful, and he expressed a real desire to help me. And when he asked me, how can I help you? I wasn't really sure. And he says, here's a clue. When someone super successful asks you what they can help you with, you need to have an answer.
Yeah.
Because all the super successful, he said this, all super successful people that I work with and interact with and talk to, anytime we ask each other, how can we help you? We always know what the next missing piece is. We have such clarity around our businesses that we know which puzzle pieces are still missing. So, can you help me with this if you're asked? So, he told me to come up with 3 things you need and email me. And I'm going to email him tonight because I have my 3 things now.
Well, and I was in a mastermind group too, and there was a very famous person in there, and he said, why, you know, I know I'm in this room, and he said I'm probably the most successful person in this room, and he asked us the question, why do you think that I've achieved this level of success? And so there was a lot of opinions, of course, or answers that went around, and he said, quite frankly, it goes into what you're saying, Brian. He said it's because I know myself best. I know what I do exceedingly well, and I know what I fail at exceedingly well. And by knowing the difference, I'm able to find the right people that take up where my failings are, and it allows me to really excel in the area that I do have my superpower in, that I do excel in. And a lot of people, the entrepreneurs, you and I both see it. We see a lot of people, they just chase those shining objects, and it's almost like they go to food source to food source to food source to food source, and they never slow down to have the quiet mind to say, what truly is their needs. I mean, wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah, and in fact, when I see people pivoting that many times, it makes me wonder, what is it you're doing here? I mean, if I needed something in
Yeah.
my business, how do I know what to ask you for? Because you've been doing all these things. You can't be good at all of them because you keep pivoting. So what am I supposed to trust you with in my business? And so I
Yeah.
tend to not do as much business with those people because I don't know what their superpower is, because maybe they haven't figured it out yet. And there's no judgment around that.
Yeah.
Some
No,
people
there's
figure it
not.
out really early, some people figure it out much later, and some people really never figure it out at all.
Yeah, so one of the things, Brian, I think that I want to bring out in today's show is something that I think is very fascinating to me. You went to Iowa State University. You grew up in Iowa, so you
Yeah.
you were a Cyclone, and
Yeah.
people always think of the Hawkeyes, but I went to Ames High myself, so I was a little Cyclone, believe it or not. And my mom taught there.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is a lot of people don't realize that communication and speech was a part of your academic career early on, and
Yeah.
you were actually trained to to teach other speakers,
Mhm.
and what you've learned from that. What are some of the changes that you've seen from the day that you're being a speaking coach to where you are as a publisher and editor, or has humanity itself really changed, and it's just the technology around us that's changed? Because
I think
I would
that
really love to know your opinion on that.
that is some of it. Technology has changed, and I think technology makes us lazier because we tend to not care how we spell things anymore.
Mm,
I also think, and one thing I noticed, that when I edit other people's writings, I'm shocked at the the number of words that people capitalize. It's like, you don't capitalize this unless it's a proper name,
mhm.
and people are capitalizing words that I'm like, where is this coming from? Where did you learn this? So I fix it and I make it right. And no, it doesn't look like anything like you turned it in because I fixed it. That's what an editor does.
Sometimes I feel like people feel like when they write, if they capitalize, they think that it means more because of that, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about capitalizing the first letter in a word, but there are some people who capitalize an entire word. Like,
Yeah.
don't do that. I would much rather have you bold or italicize it. Capital letters is screaming, especially when you're screaming an entire sentence. Okay, this does not help me. This is
Yeah.
distracting, actually. It takes away from your message.
Spelling is one thing. What are some other things that you've seen changed, over the years?
Uh, Misusing words, not using the right words in a sentence. That word
Hmm.
doesn't mean what you think it means. Stuff
Yeah.
like that. Punctuation that's wrong. It's like, I'll tell you what, you you can change the entire meaning of a sentence when a comma's missing.
you know One of the things my mom taught me, she's like, here's part of the problem. We've gotten so lazy also with our speaking, it's
Yeah,
carried over to our writing.
yeah,
And those two things have kind of created this whole, there's probably more misinformation and disinformation going on right now. And the other problem is, because of technology, all that misinformation and miscommunication actually travels faster than it used to be, doesn't it?
yeah. It does. And it's actually shocking when you see even people who write for the Associated Press, the AP, online. It's shocking that there are mistakes, or the actual content in the article is wrong
Hmm.
because they didn't do the research first.
Yeah.
But people trust them because it says AP or Associated Press. It's a supposedly trusted name in journalism.
Yeah. And we're going to come in a little bit, more recently for us. You and I both seen an incredible amount of change over the last couple of years. And, with you and I, there's that dreaded word pivot. We have had to pivot multiple times it doesn't mean we're changing multiple businesses, but we've had to create multiple pivots to keep, being seen, to keep being heard, to be being, credible, and have people find us. What are some changes that you have had to really just take on to keep your business going, and really striving,
Yeah.
this last couple of years?
Well, going back to what I said earlier, it's talking to people about creating content, because content is king. When someone talks to me about how they want to write a book someday, well, during the pandemic, they were saying, let's wait until this is over. I said, well, we don't know when that is, number one. And number two, when the world opens back up again, you want to have your book in hand, which means starting now. If you wait until the world opens up again to start your book, you're already going to be 6, 9, 12 months behind the 8 ball, because you're going to be behind everyone else who took action now.
And that is a tough word for me to hear, the word wait.
Yeah.
I mean, what does wait really mean when someone says that?
I think it means they're either A, they're afraid to tell me they don't have money right now, or B, they don't have confidence in what their message is or what they have to really offer. And I think number three, it just means that they're not willing to accept the responsibility for their decisions. They're afraid of being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid that someone doesn't really want to hear what they have to say. They're afraid that they don't have something legitimate to say. They don't see themselves as a leader or a disruptor. So why say anything at all? Well, no, I think what you have to offer, you have a secret sauce. Everyone has a secret sauce. It is your job to find out what that is and spread that special sauce all around and help people,
Yeah,
really.
and I think that that's the other thing. I feel like, if you want to become a runner, you start the art of running. If you want to become a landscaper, you learned, the tools of the trade and in the process of it. And I think the same thing is with writing. You have to start practicing somewhere, and I think it's an important piece, just like
Mhm.
speaking as well, isn't it?
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I tell people too is when they aren't sure what to write about. Now, I work with entrepreneurs and they usually have a pretty good idea of what their message is going to be because they're promoting something relating to their business
Sure. Yeah.
or they're using it to leverage their business somehow. But I tell people, chances are you've probably created some content that could become a book. When I interviewed Jeffrey Gitomer on my show several years ago, I asked him what prompted him to write his first book. He says, I never really thought about doing that. I just started to blog about all the stupid things that salespeople do. And when he had 100 blog articles, he realized I have enough content for a book. And so there it is.
Well, and I think, and I tell people this: journaling is powerful. you
Mhm.
know People who start to journaling, they actually can rely on the journaling to do what? To create their first next book. I mean, with the
Mhm.
Art of Connection, the book that I put out there a little over a year ago now,
Yeah.
um or well, actually it was a little less than a year ago now. It really started with just the quotes that we had in our networking groups that we used each week.
Yeah.
And so then was there thought and a question, and all of a sudden we had 4 years of those quotes, thoughts, and questions, and we turned it into a book. But
Right.
they weren't all mine, Brian. They ended up
No.
being, Dr. Karen Perkins quotes, and they also there was another 184 other authors who contributed their quotes as well.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, of those 184 offers, 122 of them became first-time authors who also became bestsellers. And what's so amazing is a lot of those people were waiting. They were waiting. I can't do it. There's no way. And so they would see other people pass them by. But the greatest thing that ever happened in that is when they wrote that page and saw it published, they're not waiting anymore.
Yeah.
They're the ones that came back to me. Not one of them came back to me and said, "Oh my God, that was the worst thing I have ever done. How could I have been in that book? How could I be a bestseller? Oh my gosh, now I'm a first time author. Now LinkedIn puts author next to my name." Not one person came back and said it was the worst thing they ever did. They
No.
came back and they said, "You know what? That one little page gave them the courage to do more."
Yeah.
You know,
And I'm doing a collaborative book with my Facebook group, The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Dad. I've got probably 28 people who are writing short chapters, every maybe about 3 pages or so, 3 or 4 pages a piece. You're one of them.
yeah, I
Uh,
am.
and I've got my VA working on this. I have a few more chapters left to review, but my goal is to have this come out by the end of November. We hopefully will reach that goal. I did tell people November was the goal. So I'm working on that, and that's great. And I'm going to be making another offer in my group in January, right after the holidays. So we're just going to move right from one to the next.
And you're also the editor for our I Entrepreneur magazine, and we're looking at coming out with another magazine. And Sean's the CEO. She's also my wife. She came up with a great idea to celebrate women, and to go along as a part of our publishing network that continues to grow. And what I've really found is business loves velocity. It loves speed. It loves people who say, damn torpedoes, let's go full steam ahead. Let's make something happen. And all of a sudden, just the momentum itself starts to open up doors.
Yeah.
I kid you not. Since that book, I've been able to be on more podcasts, more radio shows, collaborative books, speaking on stages, opportunities to speak overseas. All these things started coming to me, and I look at the year before. They weren't there because there were some tally marks. There were some situations that didn't show in my world,
Right.
and but it, and I've only been in this business. I've been working with some people who have been in this business, 20 to 40 years as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as an author, and many things. I've been in this business 4 years. I'm just an old recovering programming hack that worked for a lot of different companies. But you know what I found in this industry is if you have the desire to really work hard and you have an appetite to meet people, you can succeed. Wouldn't you agree?
Hmm. Absolutely. If you've got a burning desire to accomplish something, whatever your goal is, if you take action toward it as often as possible, preferably every single day, you're eventually going to get there. It's like being charged with the task of chopping down a tree. Well, you sharpen your saw first because your tree will fall down faster if you've done that. And sharpening your saw means learning your craft and practicing it regularly, even if it's
Yeah,
for free for a while.
Absolutely. Now we're coming up to the end of the quarter for this year, actually just the end of the year, if we could say, what are some goals other than another book that may be coming out and finishing this book? What are some other things that you're doing to just really finish this quarter strong that maybe other entrepreneurs could think about as well?
Yeah. I would advocate for looking at who's in your pipeline. If you're in business,
Hmm.
figure out who is in your 60-day pipeline between now and the end of the year and reach out to those people and see if there's an opportunity to do some business before the year's over with.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, what I want to do, Brian, is I want people to get to know you, love you, trust you, because I do. I definitely do. You've been a great partner in everything that we've done in the last 3 years or so now. I have your information scrolling across the screen here. Here's your phone number. Here is your email address. But what are other ways? Where can we find you?
If you have had any inkling at all about writing a book, you can go to writeabookforyou.com. And
Writeabookforyou.com. And what will they find there?
they will find an explanation of what it's like to have a book written, what you can get out of it. There are testimonials from clients who have worked with me. At the very bottom, there's a link to my segment on a show called The List, which does run here in the Phoenix area. I was on it last year, and it's like 2 minutes and 15 seconds, but I talk about 3 quick tips you can use to start getting your book going.
Yeah. So 2 tips, Brian. What is a tool that someone who's a writer could use to make their writing better? Okay, one tool. And my second question is if you want to become a writer, what is the first thing that they should do? So one
Okay.
tool and one first step.
Grammarly can be very helpful because that can point out what your mistakes are. And I have not been paying for the premium version, but sometimes Grammarly will suggest what you should change it to. And sometimes Grammarly is wrong,
Right.
but most of the time it's correct. And, for example, Grammarly will tell you if you're writing in a passive voice or not. It will suggest that you make this in an active voice. Okay, great. That's helpful. Or they'll tell you that you've typed a word twice, or that you misspelled a word, probably a typo, not necessarily that you spelled it wrong, but a typo. And it'll have like little red lines so that you know where to fix things. Google Docs can be very helpful. Some people love Evernote so that you can keep notes online for everything and just keep a separate file for everything. And if someone wants to start, they just need to start. I mean, just today, pick a topic and just start writing about it. It doesn't have to be your forever book, but just start writing something. And even if that's writing something online, posting on Facebook, a long form post on Facebook. So maybe a recommended format would be, here's a problem I had, here's how I fixed it, here's how it can benefit you to address the same problem, or how I can help you fix that same problem.
I love it, and also I know you're given in that way, and if they need help getting a start, I suggest that they contact you, and if you're not able to help them, I know that you know someone that will. Brian, thank you so much for being on the show today. Oh, one more thing, yeah.
One more thing, join my
Yes.
free Facebook group, Authorpreneur Live.
Yes, there we go. Authorpreneur Live on Facebook. Again, I'm with Brian Wright. He is the founder of Success Profiles Magazine and Success Profiles Radio Show. He's also the editor of the iNetrepreneur Magazine. 3 years running or more now, Brian.
Yeah.
He shines up the words that come through, so we have a great and awesome magazine. So, Brian, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today and giving your insight and wisdom to our listeners.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great weekend, Brian.
You too.
network together. It's all about connections. Expand your sphere of influence. Build relationships. Be part of something bigger. Be part of Network Together.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Brian, for being on the radio show today. And I'd also be remiss that aside from his magazine and his radio show, he also has some compilation books that put together some of the great minds in the industry, from Laurel Langmeyer to Kevin Harrington and so many others like Mark Victor Hansen. So he has spoken with some of the great strategy leaders in the industry. And, thank you so much, Brian, for being on the show today. And we're going to kind of continue the vein a little bit more of technology in a different form of publishing with another really good friend of mine, Mr. Daniel Miller. And I'm going to bring him on to the show right now. Hey, Daniel, what's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing, my friend? Good to
I
have
am doing well. I'm doing well. You're looking well. I mean, you got some color. I'm not so used to you looking like having that almost like copper tone red going on.
It looks red to me. I don't know about you. I was just down on Duval Street in Key West this morning looking at a couple of properties that we're picking up here. So, yeah, I got a little bit of sun, and I'm in the suite today. So I had to let Yafa go off, and she's putting a bid in on a property right now. So I got in with you guys, and so I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And it was actually, pretty nice getting to talk with you and Brian, before the show. And there's always the conversation before the show, and then you have a certain amount of conversation during the show, and then you have that conversation after the show, right? It's like a regular event. And I always say sometimes the coolest things of conversation and connection happen before and after the event, right? And one of the things that you were talking about is like Brian and I saw the picture back there, and I thought I was thinking like, that is you're probably wherever that is, right?
Yes,
but I already knew that you were in Key West. And when Brian came onto the show, he said, hey, you asked him, where do you think this is? And Brian said, Tempe Town Lakes. And for my mind, I totally got it, because when I saw that, it's very much like Tempe Town Lakes. The bridge is going over the lake, and that lake's only been there for like about a decade or now. And then you were like, no, you're like, this is Key West. And it's so funny, really like they say seeing is believing, but quite frankly, sometimes seeing can be deceiving, can it?
It definitely can be. Funny thing about the Tempe Town Lakes is that when I was doing my master's in engineering, we actually designed or did a prelim design for the 8 Worthington pumps that actually regurgitate that water. It was long story short. That's when I used to be an engineer, long time ago.
Oh man. Well, you are like, probably like Brian, you're like me, you're like a lot of entrepreneurs, and and I can't even say you set out to even be an entrepreneur, did you?
You know what? No, I was a civil engineer, and all of a sudden oddly enough, I went to a class with Mark Victor Hansen and Robert Allen called the 1 Minute Millionaire back in 2001. At that time, I was doing my MBA at Berkeley, and I was, we were down there, and it was a 3-day event. And right in the middle of it, after 2 days, I had to fly to Alexandria, Egypt, to a job that I was on. And while I was on that plane, I realized that I no longer wanted to be an engineer. It was over the course of just the first 2 days. And that started everything, because in that one event, the authors got up and they always showed their books and stuff like that. And there was one guy there, yeah, exactly,
right there.
And it was great because his name was John Childers, and just turned out to be an amazing mentor. Still is a close personal friend. I love the guy to death, and he actually got me to the point where I wrote my check. I went up with my credit card and swiped it for $25,000, and he changed my life. And within a year and a half of going to being with him and mentoring with him, I did my first $1.92 million day. And
wow.
So
yeah.
I was just on another event. I was just in another interview yesterday with a big international group, very similar to what you guys are doing. And one of the questions was, do you remember the first $1 million that you made? And I was trying to remember, and I don't remember that day. I don't remember the $10 million day, or what those days were. But I do remember the very first time I made over $1 million in a day, and that is a good time. And
that is a great time. I mean, it really is. It means you've transferred the amount of energy and knowledge and passion, and you were awarded for it, weren't you?
Well, it's interesting because Brian's right, but he's talking about it very specifically where you're repurposing a lot of your content. I had no content when I decided to do this. I borrowed somebody else's content. Yeah. So I decided, instead of building it all myself, that I was going to become what is called a hired gun. So, and you were just talking about, how do you get paid to be a speaker? Okay, well, I got paid really, really well to teach somebody else's thing that I was really good at. And so sometimes, and that made me one of the top 10 money-making and speakers in the world. I mean, essentially, when I was doing a lot of work with Tony Robbins and such like that, and speaking on the same stages as him, is the reason why I was on the same stages as him was because I made so much money doing a very specific thing. Now that it was in education, it was in training and things like that. Yeah. The transition from doing it for yourself or doing it for somebody else, making really, really good money. I mean, John Childers taught you all about that. How do you, highest paid profession in the world is a speaker, stage speaker specifically. But then taking that information, and then all of a sudden you learn over the course of 4.5 years that we built that company and then sold it. Then all of a sudden I said, well, you know what do I want to do for myself? And then you do things like this. Yeah, all the things you did for 4.5 years, you make into a book, right? Now all of a sudden I have something to sell. I have content that is mine that I can then partake and tell to people and show to people, and then create a whole nother revenue stream.
Well, and you can dole it out in the manner that you want to too. I mean, that's what's so amazing when you're able to actually control your own content, because that means you can control the way that your streams flow from that content, right?
It's true. But I'm not going to take it, I'm going to step back even, because, I know you guys are talking about, there's a lot of people out there that have struggling creating their own content. And I am one of those people, and I have been one of those people, but I'm really good at parroting somebody else's, so what they do good. There's a ton of really, 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 really smart people out there that have no clue how to do what you and I do, or speak, and that's where I get called in by the TANs, they give me 3 weeks to learn a program to make money with it, and then I speak on it. I mean, there's a lot to be said about doing that. So if there's something you really like to do, there's a ton of people that go trading stock market, right, or Bitcoin now, and they spent their money to learn how to do it. You know what? If you're good at it and you've made some modicum of success in it, okay, go ahead and teach that, right? If you've gone out and we're buying properties now and we're building franchises now in a very specific area that, we've partnered with somebody that I've partnered with somebody that is super impressive, and she's amazing. And I'm so excited about what she does, that because I know that it's simple. Success is keep it simple, stupid. If you have so many things to do that totally wipe out your day, then you're never going to be successful, because you'll never get it all done or be able to continue on with it. Now, if you have a process, keep it simple, stupid, right? Well, how do you recreate that? I used to think that you had to do it yourself. You have to take yourself and open up a new store. You have to take yourself and go and manage this one person. But you know what? It's not the case. We have now been in the process of creating franchises, essentially, in these spaces that make money, low-hanging fruit. And you and I were talking about this before we got on. The internet space is crowded now. COVID hit, everybody was on, everybody piled a ton of content on it. There's so much crap out there now that nobody knows what really works. But I will tell you right now, as the world opens up, I mean, we've already been to Europe already since COVID opened up. We've been to Central America. We've been all over as many places as we can, as well as across the United States. And now there is more low-hanging fruit in old places, local area marketing. Yeah. There are people that are moving back into living their lives out in the real world that now want to spend money. And you know what? There's some ways that you can do it. So we have 5 very specific areas that we're buying properties in, creating businesses, and then franchising those businesses out. It's awesome.
Well, one of the questions I had for you, and you're kind of already answering it, because you're getting into your sweet spot. And one thing I know about you, Daniel, is when you're in your sweet spot, you start just like exploding with energy. So I can tell you're in sweet spot. But I know that there's some other things. Life has changed for you in the last year. Like you've had an amazing ride of real change. And I myself, I've seen you speak from our stages. I've seen you done real well. I've seen you just mesmerize, in your training. But there's still been this kind of like aura change about you. Like I have people coming up to me saying, man, Daniel was a cool cat before, but it's like now I can relate with him. I can identify with him. I want to know more about him. And I'm like looking around and I'm like, what's going on with you, man? What's changing in this last 2 years? All of a sudden people feel like you're approachable and they want to do stuff with you. So I don't know, it must be your redness or something. I don't know.
It's definitely the sun. No, you know what? And you're being very kind, because you said I was a cool cat before. No, I was an asshole. I was not a person that, people followed me and did things with me because of just pure unadulterated, just power, just, okay. And they were energy. Now I've realized that, COVID did something to me at that, and a big change, divorce, and, I didn't make it. I'm a COVID casualty, separation from, my kids 50% and stuff like that. These things are hard, but I got to tell you, I became a better dad. And because I was able to focus my energy on my kids and on my life, and I got bigger, I lost 50 pounds. Those things, and just in a newfound faith, just in what God's got really kind of in tune with me. And, I know a lot of people throw God around, but, I'm 266 days into the daily audio Bible now. I feel like there's a better energy in the world that I was chasing a bad energy before. Yeah. And now I'm chasing the energy that I believe that I'm supposed to be actually doing, and helping other people. And now it's not a mission to build a million millionaires. Now is to take 10 or 20 people along on a very short journey here to do something, to follow.
And see, so, and here's the thing, because, I remember when I made my first million. I remember when I had Insightful Solutions in San Diego, when it was like, that's when I did my thing, marketing technologies. And my background, I worked with some really cool cats. I worked with Bob Parsons. I worked with Dan Kennedy. I worked with Roy Rainey. I worked with, really cool cats back in the day. And then, I decided to make my own way. I decided to start hiring people and building my own business and whatnot, but I didn't see it back then, Daniel. I didn't see it until everything got taken away. And I mean it, man, when everything gets taken away, you get such a different perspective. And what I mean by that is, when I was out there, I had one attitude, man, and that attitude was, it was about winning, and see, when you're all about winning, it's like Highlander, there can be only one, right? and so, but what happened is when I decided to move to Arizona from San Diego, and I decided to say, I want to start this whole new life, and I want to get into real estate, and it was like 2006 through 2008, the absolute wrong time to get into real estate. I had my portfolio up to 5 homes. I had my guys out in San Diego, they were doing business, and then when it fell flat, Insightful Solutions fell flat, my business fell flat, and you know where I was? You know where I was in 2009?
Underneath the bridge.
Almost. I moved back home to my parents to regroup because I was that depressed. So at 40 years old, man, I had to start all over again. And the one thing I found, and I know your glow, because I love the glow. The one thing I found is it's not about winning anymore. It's about succeeding. Because when you win, there can only be one. But when you succeed, and this is the 10 people or the 20 people or the 40 people that you talk about, you can take everyone with you, can't you?
Well, you know what? It's I've realized that it's I don't think you can take everybody with you. I wish you could.
Well, and what I mean, like when I say everyone, it's just like those 10 you're taking with you. Your team. I mean, I can't take the person that I have never met who's never heard. I get that, sure. But when it comes to succeeding, I've always envisioned this later in life, you're up on the mountaintop, but you're not alone anymore. To me, there's a certain amount of success with that.
Yeah, being a solopreneur and things like that has, you can take it so far. But if you can get in the right like herd, there's people are trying to build herds and herds. But I believe that if you have a large following, you do really well with this, and I've done really well with it. I've got 26,000 people on a list and things like that. And yeah, I can market to them and do things with them, and it's real fun to be affiliated with a lot of different groups. But if you can have a really small herd, because I was listening to a big speaker just recently on a I don't know if it was a podcast or if it was an internet something, about how many people you can actually be friends with, how many people can you actually have intimate relationships with, how many can you have, and you and I, lions. I mean, LinkedIn. I'm a lion. I don't even know what that means. I think it means that I have a lot of people. Yes, and I do.
You're a LinkedIn open networker, buddy. You're a LinkedIn open networker.
I know
it means they're coming at you. They're coming at you. That's what that means.
1,000 people or something like that I can communicate with. But you know what? I only speak to a small group of people now that I did before. And you're right. A couple of people that came to me from the last event that we did together. And we're saying, hey, I didn't like you 2 years ago, but now I really like this, is because there is a change. And I used to always want to be out there online. And I believe that online is a portion of everybody's business. There's no doubt about it. And having following is a good thing. But man, if I look around me and I see the people that are really making big jumps right now, making a lot of money, is they're keeping their herd really tight. And they're moving a small group of people in the same path, and they're growing together with like a tsunami, right? It's like all of a sudden you start out with an earthquake, and then all of a sudden you're moving, and I believe that that we found our sweet spot. And yeah, I love people to come on board and learn what we're doing. It's not for everybody, and like I was saying before, you got to get with this new thing. I mean, master's in engineering. I've got Berkeley MBA. I love my pedigree. There's no doubt about it. But I had to throw all that out to now all of a sudden make money in a different way. That's low hanging fruit. You got to get rid of your ego, and ego is a hard thing to get rid of. Sometimes you got to get beat up really, really hard. Kind of cry a lot, and realize what's your worth, where you want to start out again. And I think being good and following a path that really, really works, hit the low hanging fruit. Because right now, COVID created a whole new world, and it's an amazing world. It's more fun now than it was before, I believe. And so I look forward to sharing a lot of this with people, because it's something you and I will talk about it specifically. But there's some time that we can spend together and take people on a different journey, and it's fun. It's the most fun I've had in my entire life. I love speaking. There's nothing about it. I love stages. I love getting out there, but I never truly loved where I am right now.
But see, one of the things I think that people feel that's different from you is you even though it wasn't there, you used to speak from the podium.
Okay.
But now it's like you speak from the self, or you speak from the heart. And so I think that, no, really, dude. I mean, dude, I really think,
it's awesome.
because I watch, man. I mean, I'm a natural introvert, so it's easier for me just to watch and be a spectator, and I've had to really learn to be a player, right? I mean, not to get in the game.
I get you.
But what I see is before you would speak out there like this.
Yeah.
And now you speak there like this. So there's a big difference between speaking like this and speaking like this. And I think that that's how you've become inclusive with your energy of engagement with people. And now they feel like, I do feel like I can be connected with this guy. I do feel like, I could be motivated by his words. I do feel like, man, if given the chance we sit down and have that meeting and that one-on-one, I will go to bat for this guy. And people are saying that now, Daniel. And you know what? People are speaking from their feelings, not from their head. And I've always said this for the longest time. you can work on your mindset all your life, but if you don't have the right heart set first, the mindset means nothing. In the world-class athletes, I used to work with world-class athletes, and believe me, they don't, when it gets right down to it and they're in training to be the best, the 1% of the 1%, they never said, man, I wish I read another book. They were always talking about the desire and the passion of the heart, and that drives their mindset, which drives their skill set. See, that's where I think that people really want to connect with you, because you're leading them with an energy that is inclusive of them, and that is the change.
Well, you know what? I appreciate it, and
so everyone is watching. Hey, we're friends. But I'm just saying.
50 years, and I finally figured it out, bastard. And I get it, but Robert, back when I got to tell you, some of the things that you've done in your life, and just back when San Diego, and some of the people that you've worked with, I mean, in the programming side and everything that you were doing back in the day, I can tell you, hearing your story is insanely awesome. And just some of the things that you do, it's amazing what you've done with a netpreneur. And just how you're changing a lot of people's lives, and you've taken this into umpteen 12 countries and 24 states. I tell you, it's amazing to see you keep on doing it, and just and keep on flowing, and becoming just a better and better caliber of entrepreneur for a lot of other people. Because people need to hear that constant buzz in their ears, and just make it so.
Hey, it's like, and again, it's like having you in my life. It's like having Greg Reed in my life. There's a lot. Tim Johnson. There's good people in my life, all with different levels. And one of the things that I found, Daniel, and I learned this from you, and I'll always remember it. You may not. Yeah, I know. You told me. You said, what. You said you may not like everyone that you work with, and you said for them, that's what contracts are for. But those that you do work with make everything else worthwhile. And no, really, and I remember that, and that's the way I try to look at it. It's like, how am I feeding me? You change the information that you're fed, you change the people that are in your life, and you go for different places for the inspiration that you seek. That's how you change your life. And so, like with you, and when I get on you, I have to really make sure that I have time, because I know our call can turn from 5 minutes to an hour, like in a heartbeat. And then I look up. And so I'm always looking at the clock. I'm like, oh God, Daniel Miller's calling.
Yeah. Do I have time for this?
But what I'm saying is when you have those people in your life, like your 12, because I always say you got to have your 12. I call it your pick up the phone team. You have to have the pick up your phone team, and everyone better be different. And one thing I've understood about my entrepreneurial journey and my networking journey is when I got into it, I looked for people that are relatable, but now I look for people that are so different from me, because that is the space where I truly uberly earn so much, but what I want to do, because we're already coming up on the hour, half an hour goes like this with you, three things, because I want to give some pop rocks to people who are watching this. 3 things that you see in your world, 3 business trends that are changing right now, that every entrepreneur needs to open up their eyes with, and say, man, I better start getting some information on this. What are 3 trends? What are 3 things, technologies or information, or the way that we consume, information, etc.
You know what? So, okay, the 3 things that I'm seeing that I'm putting my whole life into right now is, of course, as people are coming back out of COVID, that they're traveling. Now, they're not traveling tremendously internationally, but they're traveling domestically inside of their different countries. And what they want to do is they want to feel. So you're exactly right. So what they want to do is they want to feel, and the only way to feel something is to give them a service. So whether it's something that creates a little bit of excitement, something that changes the your features, or a hair braid, or teeth whitening, or bouncing on a jump box, or just something, a spa, whatever it is. there is so much low-hanging fruit there that people are pent up with their capital, and they want to spend it because they haven't been able to. If they didn't do a lot of work on themselves or on their home or whatever while this COVID thing was happening, then they have a lot sitting there. But now that PPP is running out and people actually have to go back to work, and you're starting to see this global change, and you're starting to see people really migrating. That's part of the reason why we're down in Key West. Is they just started this month. The cruise ships started coming back. Okay. Yeah. Great. Cruise ships just started coming back. Now we're down here tonight. We're going out to Fantasy Fest, and we did a combined thing, came down here to have a little bit of fun, but we're down here to buy property. We're down here because now the crowds are coming back, and they are hungry, and they want something. And it's not that hard. The process to find out what they need and then give it to them is the same as what we used to do on the internet. Find out what your client needs, give it to them, and then charge them for it, right? But now people are so hungry that maybe they're tired of looking at the computer. Maybe they're tired of looking at this. And it's not a bad thing, but there's a certain amount of people that are craving it. They want to get out. They want to scream. They want to get crazy again. They want to live. They want to feel. They want to stop having to be under this oppressive thing that's happening to the world, and starting to get there, right? And so that's one thing. Is services. I believe services are a big thing right now. And I know it's a touch point that most people on the internet don't really like. Because hey, okay, I got to touch somebody. I want to give them education. You know what? Education was good for the last year and a half, probably the last 5-10 years. Yes, I believe it's good. But now services, big time. And finding traffic. Now, instead of paying for traffic to get somebody to come to your book, right? Good. And spending that X amount of money on marketing dollars. You can find traffic that's already moving down a street. Local area marketing. Guys have been making money in it for a long time. But finding an area that has the traffic that you want, you can personally, it's better off to buy a spot on that traffic. And I'll build that business around it. And so that's the reason. McDonald's. Look at McDonald's. I hate using McDonald's because everybody's like, oh yeah, McDonald's. It's $1.1 million to $2.4 million for a McDonald's franchise, and you got to, it's $45,000 for the franchise fee. That's not what I'm talking about. But they had it right. They found the traffic. They bought the corners that had the traffic, and then they put a burger sign up and said, hey, follow me. Now they became a big marketing arm and probably one of the largest real estate holders in some major metropolitan areas across the world. They do it. But why not you? I mean, if you just start with one place, and it's not like I'm not telling you to become a billionaire. What I'm trying to tell you is to say, hey, you know what? You can become a millionaire in the next 3 years if you follow a very structured process, get your ego out of the way, and just make some money. Start doing the things that, and some people are going to love it. Some people are not. I talked to a doctor the other day, and literally this lady, she said, no, I'm not doing it. It's underneath me. That's what she said. And I said, well, how much do you make a year? She goes, I make $125,000 a year. I said, you know what? The lowest on our list right now makes $250,000 a year. The highest, $1.7 million a year. So you say, hey, you know what? I'm fine. Your ego is in the way. You want to be called doctor, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Yes, go ahead. That's wrong. But you know what? I have one of the top hernia surgeons in the world. Can't wait to do this because you know what? He makes a lot of money, but he's tired. He's energetically gone. And he's like, this is good cash. I put 3 of these things together. It makes more money than my entire practice. Why the hell not?
Right? I call it the theory of 5 senses, by the way. The reason why people are ready to go to experience and feel again is because we've been inundated with 2 senses, sight and sound. That's all it is. This Zoom is sight and sound, but my taste and my feeling, right? All of that has been ignored for a few years now. And people want to get out and they want to feel their life again. They don't want to just hear it or see it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a part of it. I'm going to have to break on the end of the show right now. We got two from you, Daniel, but
right.
You know what? I'm going to scroll your information across here at the bottom. I want to make sure that everyone gets a hold of you. I have your business name, your phone number, your email, but what are other ways that people can get a hold of you?
You know what? The best way to do it is right now, danielcgrglobal@gmail.com. We're in the process of course, bringing some things, but I'm going to actually have a class in about a week And I'm going to do it for anybody who's from the radio show, as well as I just did the thing with the Navy SEALs just a couple of weeks ago in San Diego. And then from your last event, the week before that. You know what? We're going to have a class. I'm going to spend an hour and a half. I'm going to explain everything that I'm doing, everything that I think people can do. It's not going to be hugely, it's going to be a process. If it's the right fit, great. If it's not, great. You know what? I know where we're at. And I hope some people come along. You can also text me at 510-220-7131. It's very easy. It comes right to this phone. I got rid of my ego. You know what? Text me. It's fine. And then, and then we'll get a group of people together. Like I said, we're looking for 10 to 20 people to come along on this journey in this next year. And then we'll grow from there. But right now we know where the opportunity is, and we hope some people want to come along. It's not cheap. It's not cheap in time. It's fairly inexpensive in money, but you got to work hard. And if you're willing to get a little sweat equity in it and maybe change your life, the money is there. It made it, but it just may not be where you think it is. That's the interesting thing.
It's always that way. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show. I am with Daniel Miller. I mean, he rock star, stage speaker. I mean, best-selling author, owner, founder of Global Business Solutions, and that's like one of 35 companies that he has. Who knows how many? He probably doesn't even know how many companies he has at this time. Daniel, again, thank you for being on the show. Make it a lovely, wonderful weekend, and say hello to the bridges behind you for me.
You know what, Robert, again, you're awesome in so many ways, and just you've changed a lot of people's lives. And, I really appreciate you being a friend through some pretty interesting times and hard times and good ones. You and Sean are amazing. And, I look forward to continuing the relationship. And you know what, let's get on a quick phone call sometime soon and just talk what we're doing. Cause I think, there's always great opportunity in everything.
Always great opportunities. Again, thank you so much, Daniel. Have a great weekend. See you.
Take care.
All right, that is Daniel Miller with Global Business Solutions, rockstar speaker, thinker of thoughts, mastermind leader, and so many other things. Again, Daniel, thank you so much for being on the show. And I want to remind everyone, the iEntrepreneur Radio Show is on Thursdays from 2:30 to 3:30 right now Pacific time, but we are I'm looking at the clock, in Arizona, and in a few weeks it's going to change to Mountain Standard Time. So we're in that crazy state of Arizona where we are mavericks and everything has to be done our own way. Again, you have places to go and things to do, but you chose this time and space to do it with us, and I want to say thank you for it. Have a great weekend, everyone. We will see you next week.
You've been watching the iEntrepreneur Show, a production of the iEntrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.